we really should start out with the big news of the week, which is that two very unfortunate injuries to our starting two running backs, Gabe Ervin Jr.
True.
and Rhamir Johnson. I mean, just gutted for those guys. Totally just gutted for those guys.
Yeah.
They've put in so much work. I mean, us as fans, we see like 5% of the amount of work that's done to be on a football team and to be, the starting running back for Nebraska. So I'm very gutted for him, especially Rhamir. I think Gabe's going to take his medical red shirt, and I do believe Gabe can come back from this. Rhamir, on the other hand, I believe this was going to be his last year of football.
He still technically would have one more year left.
For real.
That's 6 years at this point. So it is really that's a long time to be in the mix there. And, you have to weigh the pros and cons of that. Like, is he an NFL player? Or is he just going to keep beating up his body?
Right.
No,
yeah. I mean, it's a decision he's going to have to make, and the coaching staff's going to have to make with him, and we'll see where that goes. But it just seems like a more likely scenario that this could be his last football that we've seen of him, which is so unfortunate. I mean, when I heard the news, I literally almost was shedding tears for it because, like, we've been talking about Rhamir Johnson for so long. He's such a good guy. Yeah. He does all the right things. And he's just was such a team guy. Yeah, it's just hard to see that happen to those dudes. But that being said, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a next man up mentality, right? So now our starting running back is AG, Anthony Grant, and I think we've seen him sort of take a step to look like maybe the best running back in the room either way, which was sort of ironic how that played out that way. And then we got a redshirt freshman. Emmett Johnson in the backup role, and by all accounts of people who have coached him, he's a really talented player. So we'll get to see what he looks like as well. So how do you think? How do you think the running back situation looks like going forward, man?
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I wanted to pose this hypothetical: lots of teams can't lose two co-starting running backs and be okay. If it was going to happen in one of our position groups, it would have been running back. That we would be still okay. Not perfect because the room was stacked. The more talent you have, the better. You can get those guys fresh legs, especially going into Big Ten play. That's really where it's going to rear its head, I think. But I am cautiously optimistic. I mean, Anthony Grant had a great year last year, almost 1,000-yard rusher. And he did not really take a step back as opposed to just a couple games here and there.
I mean, and it wasn't even like he was the centerpiece of our offense last year either. Right? I mean, Trey and Casey were. So that's statistically significant when you talk about 900 plus yards.
Absolutely. The one thing that I will say is still a detriment on him, which it can be a good thing. He bounces it a little too much, but he does have very good vision. So sometimes he does that when he thinks he sees something and it's not there. But sometimes he sees something, like on that touchdown run, he bounced it, got a touchdown. So it's a pros cons, but that's just part of being a running back in general. I would definitely like him to hit the hole a little bit harder because the other two definitely did that. But I would also like to see him just do his thing and not try to do too much. Just run the ball.
I agree with that. I mean, and in that last game, were you talking about his touchdown at the end of the game where he?
Yeah.
Okay, so technically that he didn't bounce it. He went through the exact hole that he was supposed to go through. It was a complete lead block. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things that I think can unlock AG's strengths is the differences in our offense this year versus last year. We weren't seeing like those dudes get as much movement in those types of blocking schemes as we are this year. I mean, really, if you freeze frame it to the moment on that touchdown specifically, if you freeze frame it on the moment that AG gets the ball and takes his first step, doesn't look like there's a hole there. But then the H-back comes through, pulls through the hole, and AG shows some patience behind him, and then he bounces it when he really needs to. And that's something that I think that AG sort of got a bad rap last year because not only was our offensive line, I think, a step behind where they are already this year, I think that, I mean, our offense, Whipple did not orientate the offense for a real rushing attack. Yeah. So I don't know if all that jittery, jivey, not north and south sort of running that you're talking about with AG is indicative of how he actually is as a player, as much as it's indicative of what we looked like last year as a team.
Yeah.
Now we'll see. Well, he's the guy now, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But I am optimistic about AG. I think that he's proved time and time again that he can lower his shoulder and run somebody over, man.
Yeah.
And I really like that. And he's also shown the ability to make tight cuts in tight spaces.
Absolutely.
Now, is it always the right cut that he's making? No, it's not always the right cut, but every once in a while it is the right cut. And when that is, he looks a little bit like Rhamir Abdullah in there. Not quite, but
listen, he does have that game breaking speed too. He can beat guys to the corner and he can get some long runs. I mean, he's shown that. The thing that the interesting thing I will like to see. I mean, Rule said at the beginning of the season that why would you put like second and third string guys back for returns? You put your most electric guys back there and let them make plays. So who was back there with Rhamir Johnson?
Great point.
Who was back there?
Great
it was
point.
Emmett Johnson.
Yeah.
So they know that he has that game breaking ability. So I'm interested to see how they ended up using him.
Yeah.
And to go from there, I do think that we are still in a decent position, especially with the running quarterbacks we got. And it's not now another loss at that position, then we're going to be in for a long year.
No doubt about it. I mean, that position group went from being possibly one of the deeper rooms on the team to now the least deep room on the team.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, one thing I think about is yesterday, the Bill Bush was on the radio for 2 hours in the morning, like he always is, and he had so many gems left and right. He talked about how the style of football that Matt Rule wants to play at Nebraska can actually be very advantageous with the new rules, because you're talking about a staff that only has to break down 50 offensive plays a game in some games, versus they used to have to break down 110 if you were at Oregon in their heyday. So there's that. But also he talked about, I mean, he's coached Emmett Johnson, and he tries to not give you specifics to what and when he actually knows things about players, but he'll give you little nuggets. And one of the little nuggets he gave is like, look, Emmett Johnson's a really talented player. I think that he's going to be able to show the fans how talented of a player he is. And he was just like, so he didn't say outright that this is going to be a good thing, but he did say something like, maybe some things, end up being positives after all. So I'm very
especially
intrigued
getting your
with
young
Emmett.
guys
Yeah.
experience and playing time.
Mm-hmm.
That is really important for the future. And Rule has always been a future-oriented coach, playing for the now, but thinking towards the future. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yep.